Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the CryptX Live Wire. I'm joined by my co-host CJ Reichel, and lots to discuss today. As the title suggests, the Fed cut rates 25 basis points, Bitcoin trending down, seeing a little bit of a rally here in the later half of the day. So we'll talk about that price action and a whole lot more. But CJ, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good, Monty. A little bit cold in Chicago, but
Yeah.
we're managing through. Not a whole lot going on in the market today. Silver obviously making a new all-time high. We had the indices which are most sensitive to rate cuts, being the Dow and IWM, really leading the way and outperforming the Nasdaq, which we don't usually see.
Hmm.
So just kind of been seeing that continuation. Obviously, dollar was really down, got smacked after cuts, and we've seen the yen and CHF really leading. So kind of like what we said before going into rate cuts, like we got the 25 basis point cut that was priced into the market, and now it's kind of just business as usual so far.
Yeah, and before we dive into crypto, I actually did want to ask you, what did you make of that move in the DXY? Was that something that you were expecting, or did that kind of catch you off guard? Because that was a pretty drastic move.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really expect necessarily like anything because the market's just so unpredictable. It's more about like what the market is saying when it actually reacts. So,
Right.
yeah, I didn't think it was going to go down that much, but it did. And, like I said, it's kind of just business as usual where we have that risk off asset being the dollar trending down. Now we have stocks continuing to go higher. So, um, can't really fight that tape or that continuation. So I don't think it really presented any trading opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Without further ado, you want to dive into some assets here?
Yeah, I'd like to cover Bitcoin just very briefly.
Sure. And I'd
But
like to
I
cover.
you know I see you have some charts. You can go first, my friend.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about ETH very briefly today, because ETH was down more than Bitcoin. It was up more than Bitcoin to start the week, but it did see a pretty strong pullback this week. But I still think the technicals for ETH look strong. I published an ETH trade insight for our members a couple days ago, or I believe it was yesterday morning. And I'm still in that trade. Stop losses at 30.50. But let me just pull up the chart and show you guys what I'm talking about here. So, taking a look at ETH. Um, it's down about 3% today. But one thing that I find very encouraging is the fact that we were able to get above this moving average, flip this level from resistance to support. You can see it acted as resistance here. It acted as a form of resistance here, here, and here. And now we're back above that level. And even though we dipped down below it, buyers stepped in. We saw people step back in and push ETH back up to the $3,200 level. So we're above this moving average now. It's flipped to support. And I like to see that. Now that we have support below price, I think that in the coming days here, we could see a climb higher. This rally at the end of the day has really brought back life into this market and brought us back above that moving average, which is exactly what I wanted to see. So I still have a price target up here at around 36.50. That's at the previous swing high. I think that in just a matter of days, we could see some very positive price action for ETH because, I think what we're seeing here today is just some concerned profit taking. One thing I'll point out, and this is something I've been harping on, but I think it's very important to note, is the ETF outflows, or the net flows to be specific. And what's been going on in the last 3 days has been massive outflows from the ETFs. So this is affecting Bitcoin and ETH. Those are the two main assets held by institutions and ETFs, obviously. And but one thing you'll notice is anytime we've gotten one of these massive outflows, it tends to coincide with at least a local bottom. Um, of course, price does sometimes go lower after we see those outflows, but usually it takes a solid amount of inflows for price to decently accumulate. So seeing this here, we did see some inflows earlier in the week, but now we're seeing pretty drastic outflows. This could mark the bottom for Bitcoin and ultimately for ETH as well, because I think if Bitcoin rises 2%, you'll see a 4% increase in ETH and even more so in the altcoins. So just some things to have on your radar as this week develops. I think tomorrow could be a very pivotal day. I'd really like to see green candles across the board, and ETH maintain that 20-day smooth moving average as a level of support. So um, that's kind of what I'm watching right now. But ultimately, CJ, I think it's going to come down to what we see tomorrow. And I'm encouraged by the fact that, like I said, we flipped that level from critical resistance to critical support. So we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. And I think that, it's almost less about predicting the market and just looking for like optimal long setups. And I think if
Yeah.
you were going by the 7 point trading checklist, like we did have long setups in Bitcoin and ETH last week. And, I think the market sell offs the last couple days have given, buyers opportunities to step in, and you kind of just manage your risk, place your stop loss where you're going to put it. Obviously, you have upside targets, and the rest is really up to the market. I think as you mature as a trader, you stop asking the question like, why did I lose? And you start asking the question like, did I follow my plan? And I think the plan that we've outlined in terms of our process and talked about is pretty sound in terms of this setup. But I will go over the technicals in Bitcoin today, even though there was not a whole lot different. So one thing that I've kind of just been watching anecdotally and seeing is each time we get these wicks here, or anytime Bitcoin has tested down, including on Sunday and earlier today, what we've seen is in the cryptocurrency perpetual futures markets, we've seen funding rates flip negative when we've been at the bottom of those wicks, because I've chased every single time. Well, I haven't chased, but I've looked at funding rates every single time we've gotten a sell-off like that in kind of a concerning manner. And everybody has really flipped bearish at those lows, but price just hasn't been able to break down yet. A lot of people have looked at this as more of a bear flag, but I'm a little bit hesitant since we've already had so much negative price action. And the other thing that I think is notable is that Bitcoin's holding the 20-day moving average. We have a solid, probably 5 or 6 closes above the 20-day moving average right now. And to me, nothing has really changed since yesterday or the day before, where we're still looking for upside targets at the 200-day moving average of roughly 108K, and below 80K or below the recent lows in terms of a close below those levels. That's where we know we're wrong. So very, very clear-cut setup. Also, on the weekly chart, I think that you have even more bullish arguments, because you have the CCI turning up from oversold levels that have been so oversold we didn't actually hit those in the CCI since 2017. So it's been a very long time since we were that like at a low in terms of like capitulation in price. So going back and seeing a reversion to the 20-week and maybe a test of this previous support at 105 to get people back in the mood to say, all right, maybe we were wrong about, the bull market being over. Maybe we're going into new highs. I think that sets up for a nice place to kind of be a bull trap and form some type of lower high as we go into Q1. But ultimately, all I can really say is, I'm not really looking to predict the market here or do anything. I'm just, looking at the setup, and we'll see if it plays out. If it doesn't, then all you can really do is manage risk to the best of your ability, whether it's risking 75 basis points or 100 basis points based on your conviction. But that's what I'm seeing in terms of Bitcoin.
Yeah, the risk to reward is certainly there. I mean, we have a clear level to cut your losses, which is a very important thing to have when you're entering a trade, and then a very clear upside target at that moving average. And that weekly chart, CJ, very reminiscent of what we saw in March, in my opinion, where we got kind of widely diverged from the moving average, saw some bearish price action, negative sentiment, but then ultimately we managed to climb higher and see some very positive price action in the following weeks. So I think that that is something that we could see there. That weekly chart looks pretty strong to me. And yeah, thank you for that breakdown. Very helpful.
And sentiment has just, really been in the gutter, especially with stocks at all-time highs. So I think that always kind of helps for, price action if you are looking for an upside move. So
Yeah, those moments when sentiment is the worst tend to be the best buying opportunities, when you Buy when people are fearful, sell when they're greedy. Um, Pretty simple philosophy, easier said than done. But that being said, sentiment is reaching lows that we haven't seen in quite some time, and that to me is a sign that price may be headed in the positive direction in the coming weeks here.
Any altcoins that you've been looking at? I know you mentioned Dash a couple of days ago. Zcash obviously had a really strong day to the upside. Any thoughts on things like that, or any other assets aside from ETH that you've been looking at?
Yeah, I've been actually, like you said, watching Dash a little bit, and I think that that's worth talking about briefly here. I'll pull up that chart real quick, um, because it is outperforming the market today. It's looking pretty strong amidst market neutrality. That being said, still not the strongest looking technical formation, but from a trader's perspective, I like this. I This trade was brought to my attention when we got this bullish engulfing candle here, and then we got another day of positive price action. Bit of a sell off here. Funding rate got a little too positive, and I think some longs got shaken out that drove us back down. But today we're back up. And the way I would trade this, and the way I plan to trade this, is put my stop loss just below the low here. So like right at about 44. And my take profit, I'd want to get out around the moving average. So around 58. Um, but given the fact that it's showing resilience into market weakness, I think that if we see market strength, which I am anticipating in the next couple of days here from Bitcoin and from the crypto market in general, I think we can see this one outperform to the upside. So taking a short levered long on this one with a tight stop loss, I think is a trade with pretty good risk to reward here. And like if you look at my just watch list here, you can see it's for the most part a sea of red. It was worse earlier in the day. It's getting better now, but this is one that stands out being up 5%. And I think if the market does turn around, you can see a very high beta move here in Dash. So one to definitely have on your radar and just one to keep an eye on because I think it could be a very quick mover.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's obviously correlated with the privacy coin meta that has been
Yeah.
impacting Zcash and a lot of cryptocurrencies lately. You've been talking about ETH and focusing on that. Are there any crypto equities you've been looking at, like BMNR? MicroStrategy's just really been struggling to get out of a funk, being the primary digital asset treasury company of Bitcoin, but have you had any thoughts on Tom Lee's BMNR and the Ethereum digital asset treasury? Do you think that's maybe a way where one could get kind of leverage on Ethereum, but buying it through a spot vehicle?
Yeah, absolutely. I hold some BMNR, full disclosure. I do think it's a good vehicle for exposure. Trading options on BMNR is a good way to, get some leverage on your trade. And if you believe ETH is going to perform well, it tends to correlate very heavily with the performance of BMNR. So it's kind of like the same bet, just a different way of looking at it. But ultimately, I think that the ability to trade options on BMNR provides more flexibility. And, there's a lot of different ways you can play it, maybe like a calendar spread, or even just, I like the idea of buying calls with the thesis that ETH is going to go up and we're going to see in return BMNR and other like ETH funds perform very well. So, yeah, I think those are great vehicles to exposure. Um, just looking at the BMNR chart real quick, um, it's,
I think you might have to hit share.
yeah, let me pull it up. It's not looking incredibly bullish, but it's been trending sideways here
I'm
for
sorry
quite
to
some
interrupt
time.
you, Monty. You might have to try hitting share one more
Yeah,
time.
can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, yeah. So So the last time we talked about this, we talked about a calendar spread ending in late October. It's been a while since we've talked about this, but seeing this last week of performance, I think has been relatively impressive from Bitmine. And like I kind of pointed out with ETH, this level that had been acting as support flipped to resistance, now acting as support again. The fact that we're getting above this moving average, the fact that it's holding these levels, I think is encouraging. So even though the crypto market, if you compare with Bitcoin's chart, obviously Bitcoin has been beaten up a lot more in the month of November than BMNR has. Um, so again, when you see signs of resilience from an asset like this, where this stock is largely correlated with the price of Bitcoin and crypto in general, and you're seeing signs of resilience where Bitcoin's showing weakness and this one is holding up relatively well, you can expect outperformance to the upside as well. So if we do get a nice move in Bitcoin, I think BMNR will perform very well on the back of that move. So if we do get a move up to the moving average, kind of like you're predicting, CJ, I think we could see a really nice move out of Bitmine, and also a comeback from other crypto-related equities like MicroStrategy, um, and Riot and Mara. All I think could perform very well if we get a move back up into the 100K range.
Thank you for that analysis, Monty. Appreciate it. And I think it's going to be exciting to see how things shake out and, whether we get that move up or, long positions are stopped out. So I think that's all we got for today. Make sure you check out the 2-week free trial at stickytrades.com/CryptX. We have a trading community where we publish those trade insights in real time and also have a Telegram chat, keeping you guys updated and can interact with the community through that way. So, like I said, check out that free trial. We'd obviously love to have you and, teach you our process of trading. But hope you have a good day, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.